Welcome, deep divers. So glad you're here.
Mm.
Today, we're embarking on a truly fascinating journey, one that promises to unlock the secrets of true resilience. We're going to introduce you to a concept that our research calls the zone map. Oh, yeah. Have you ever felt that frustrating sensation of being stuck, like you're running tirelessly but not actually moving forward? Or perhaps just overwhelmed, like you're constantly hitting a wall despite your best efforts? I think we've all been there. Our mission today is to give you a clear roadmap, maybe a shortcut, to navigating those feelings, overcoming those obstacles, and ultimately becoming what we're calling bulletproof.
Indeed, and the theoretical material we've looked at for this deep dive, it offers a remarkably clear and importantly actionable framework. It moves beyond just, understanding resilience as some abstract idea. It's really about giving you the tools to apply it effectively in your daily life. We're looking at not just what to do, but the crucial why behind your actions, ensuring you can develop a genuine sort of lasting state of resilience.
All right, let's unpack this term then, bulletproof. When we talk about being bulletproof in this context, what does it truly mean to possess that kind of resilience? Is it about never feeling anything, letting nothing touch you, or is it something else?
Yeah, that's an excellent question to start with because there's often a misconception there. Being bulletproof isn't about avoiding challenges or wishing problems away. Not at all. Instead, the framework defines a resilient person as someone who, after a negative impact, can return to their previous mental state without suffering, lasting damage. Think of it not as a rigid shield, but more like a dynamic ability to absorb, adapt, and crucially rebound.
So it's more flexible.
Exactly. It's about turning difficulties to your advantage, maybe even embracing failures and continuing towards your goals even when you get, well, hit.
Mhm.
Kind of reminds me of Neo in The Matrix, not just dodging bullets,
Right.
but learning to bend and use those external forces, those impacts to his own momentum.
That dynamic ability, that quick recovery, it's absolutely crucial in our modern world, isn't it? We're
Yeah.
constantly navigating this just barrage of information, unexpected events, inevitable setbacks. It feels constant sometimes.
It really does. And if you can't quickly recover from these impacts, they can seriously derail you. That leads to burnout. It prevents you from achieving your objectives. It just stops you in your tracks.
So this capacity to persist and thrive, regardless of what life throws your way, it isn't just a desirable trait then. It's more like a fundamental skill.
It absolutely is a fundamental skill for continuous progress and, frankly, well-being in your daily life. It's not optional if you want to keep moving.
Okay, so if being bulletproof is about bouncing back and constantly moving forward, what holds us back so often? Why do we feel that tension, that frustration, that inflexibility in our lives?
Well, the foundational texts we looked at, they highlight three primary culprits. You could say three main reasons.
All right, what are they?
First, we spend far too much energy trying to influence things we have absolute no direct control over, zero. Second, we tend to stay stuck in a zone. We'll get into these zones, but a zone where real growth simply can't happen. It's just not possible there. And third, we engage in activities that, well, frankly, have no significant impact or added value. What many of us would instantly recognize as busy work.
Oh, busy work, yeah. That feeling of running on a treadmill, right?
Yeah.
You're expending effort, you're getting tired, breaking a sweat even,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not actually moving forward. You look around, the landscape hasn't changed, you're just
Yeah.
static. It's incredibly frustrating.
You've hit on a critical point there. Understanding these root causes, just knowing why you feel stuck, is truly the first step towards change. Our energy, our resources, whether it's time, mental focus, emotional capacity, they're finite. They run out.
Right.
And when we misdirect them towards the uncontrollable or to areas where no growth is possible or, on activities that simply don't contribute meaningfully, we just deplete ourselves without achieving real progress. We burn out.
And that misdirection, that leads to stagnation.
Exactly. It leads to stagnation, keeping us in what the material describes as a middle state where true development is impossible. So recognizing these energy drains, seeing where the leaks are, allows us to consciously reallocate our most precious resources effectively. Start plugging the holes, so to speak.
And that's precisely where this zone map comes into play, isn't it? This map is introduced as a powerful tool to consciously distribute your attention, your energy, your effort. It breaks down your activities into three critical zones: the control zone, the growth zone, and the impact zone.
Mm-hmm.
And each of these zones, as we'll see, requires its own unique approach or mindset.
Absolutely. Mastering these zones is truly foundational to developing that bulletproof state we've been discussing. It's about intentionally choosing where you put your focus and effort to maximize your resilience and your forward momentum.
Okay, so let's dive into the first pillar then, the control zone. What exactly falls within our direct power here? What can we actually control?
Right. So this zone is the area where you can literally do something, where you have 100% direct influence. And it's probably, honestly, a smaller area than we initially imagine.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, well, you absolutely control your own thoughts and actions.
Right.
Nobody else controls those. You control how you choose to handle challenges. You control where you draw your boundaries, how you spend your free time, where you consciously decide to put your energy, even how you talk to yourself, that inner dialogue. And, importantly, the specific goals you set for your efforts.
It's fascinating, though, how much mental real estate we give to things utterly beyond our reach. When you contrast that sharply with what you cannot control, like other people's actions, right?
Yeah.
Or the ultimate outcomes of your efforts, you only control the effort itself, not the result necessarily. The future, what others think of you, the past, good luck controlling that, or external events happening around you.
And that's where so much of our frustration originates. It really is. We often expend vast amounts of energy, worry, even anger on things that fall way outside our control zone. We worry about what others think, we try to force outcomes, or we dwell on the past, things that are simply unchangeable by our direct actions.
So there are other zones mentioned, like influence and interest.
Yeah, the material mentions an influence zone where you might have an indirect effect. You can persuade or suggest, and an intrazone where you have minimal to zero effect, like, say, international politics for most of us. But the core insight from this framework is that your direct power, and therefore your most effective energy, lies solely within your control zone.
Can you give an example, like with a goal?
Sure, consider setting a goal, maybe running a marathon. You control your dedication, your training schedule, the effort you put into each run. That's all you. But you don't control the ultimate outcome of winning the race, or even the weather on race day.
Right.
You control your preparation, your journey, not always the final destination. Focus your energy there.
Okay, that makes sense. Focus on the controllable effort. So if the control zone is about what we focus on, then the next zone, the growth zone, digs into the quality of our approach to life, right? Many people call it the comfort zone, but the material we've explored has a different, maybe more accurate term for it.
It does, yeah. It prefers the term habit zone, and I think for good reason. Because this zone isn't always comfortable. In fact, it can be downright detrimental sometimes.
How so?
Well, think about being stuck in a toxic job for years, or maybe a bad relationship. That's rarely comfortable, is it?
No, definitely not.
But it becomes familiar, and our brains are actually wired for energy saving. Staying in the habit zone requires less mental effort, less energy expenditure, so the brain prefers it, even if it's slowly eroding your well-being. It's the path of least resistance, even when that path is leading you somewhere you don't want to be.
Wow. Okay. And the framework breaks this growth zone down into 4 layers. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, 4 layers. First, there's the habit zone itself, that familiar territory, the routines, shaped by your deep-seated beliefs and often your fears. Just outside that, you hit the fear zone. This is where all those excuses live. Self-doubt creeps in, the fear of what other people will think.
Yeah, the fear of judgment.
Exactly. This zone really acts like a powerful rubber band that tries to pull you right back into the familiar habit zone. It feels safer there, even if it's not better.
But if you push past that fear,
If you manage to push through it, you enter the learning zone. Think of this as your practice area. This is where you acquire new skills, you try out new approaches, you test the waters. It's about experimentation. And then finally, beyond learning lies the development zone. This is the outermost layer. This is where new, sometimes seemingly impossible goals are set and actually achieved, where you really do things you never thought you were capable of. True transformation happens here.
so this raises a question for me. If growth requires stepping outside the habit zone into fear and learning, are we supposed to constantly live in discomfort? That sounds exhausting too.
That's a really important point. And the answer is no, not constantly. The true long-term goal isn't to constantly jump out of your habit zone like some extreme sport. It's more about strategically expanding your habit zone as much as possible.
Expanding it, how does that work?
By intentionally stepping into the learning zone, trying new things, facing those fears bit by bit, you actually make those things less scary, more familiar. Over time, what was once in the fear or learning zone becomes part of your new, larger habit zone. So you effectively shrink the relative size of the fear zone. More things become manageable, familiar.
So you're making your safe space bigger.
Precisely. It makes your world bigger, your capabilities wider, and your resilience stronger because more challenges feel less daunting. It's a continuous process of intentional expansion, but, and this is critical, it highlights that all true growth involves some discomfort. You can't avoid it. It's that very discomfort that tries to pull you back. But we have to remember, as the practical wisdom in these sources states, what doesn't grow decays.
What doesn't grow decays.
Yeah, discomfort is basically your essential companion on the path to resilience. You have to learn to tolerate it, even welcome it sometimes.
Okay, so we've navigated what we can control the control zone and where our growth truly happens by expanding our habit zone through the growth zone layers. But how do we make sure all this effort, this controlled growing effort, truly matters, that it makes a difference? That's where the third zone, the impact zone, comes in, isn't it?
It is, yeah. This zone is all about the proportion or the effect of your actions. It measures how much impact your efforts actually have on your life and, crucially, on your goals. It's really about efficiency, getting the most bang for your buck, energy-wise.
And this is where that 80-20 rule comes in.
Exactly. This is where the famous Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, becomes incredibly relevant. It suggests, roughly, that about 20% of your efforts, your inputs, will yield about 80% of your meaningful results, your outputs. So the key is identifying that high-impact 20%.
Which means this zone also serves as a potent warning against that busy work we mentioned earlier, that feeling of being incredibly active, working hard, long hours maybe, but not actually being effective, not moving the needle on what really counts. It truly highlights that time is your most critical and utterly irreplaceable resource. Once it's spent, it's gone. So you need to ensure every hour, every bit of energy you invest, brings the maximum possible return towards your actual goals.
Absolutely, you've nailed it. The impact zone ensures your limited time and energy are invested in genuinely high-impact activities. It's about consciously choosing what to focus on and, crucially, evaluating its real-world effect, asking, is this really making a difference? For instance, let's consider someone who loves writing articles, ebooks, posts. Maybe they spend huge amounts of time on this.
Feels productive, right? You're creating content.
It feels productive, exactly. But if that effort, all those hours writing, doesn't lead to connection with people or visibility or directly impact their broader goals, maybe their goal is building a resilient community or helping others become bulletproof. If the writing isn't achieving that, then it might just be busy work.
Ouch. Okay.
It's not achieving the true desired outcome. This zone forces you to measure the return on investment, the ROI, for your efforts, and make sure your actions move the needle where it truly counts for your most important objectives.
Okay, wow. We've laid out these three crucial zones.
Yeah.
The control zone, what you can influence, the growth zone, where you expand your capabilities, and the impact zone, ensuring your efforts matter. Now, for the real payoff, I guess, where do they all meet? You mentioned something called the sweet spot.
Yes, the sweet spot. This is where it all comes together. This is where the magic truly happens, as you said.
So what defines this sweet spot?
Achieving this sweet spot means you are operating in an optimal state. It's the powerful intersection point where three critical conditions align. First, you are working on things you actually control. You're firmly in your control zone. Second, these efforts are genuinely leading to growth and development, pushing you beyond your familiar habit zone. You're active in your growth zone. And critically, third, these actions are having the biggest impact on your goals and the direction you want your life to take. You're maximizing your impact zone.
Okay, can you maybe paint a picture? What does living or working in that sweet spot actually look like in practice?
Sure. Let's imagine a challenging work project. If you're in the sweet spot, you are solely focused on the tasks you can personally execute and influence your research, your individual contributions, prepping your specific presentations. That's your control zone. At the same time, as you tackle these, you're also, say, learning new software needed for the project, or refining your presentation skills, or maybe even taking on a small leadership role that pushes your capabilities. That's your growth zone. You're expanding your habits, getting better.
Okay, control and growth.
And crucially, every single one of these actions, the research, the learning, the presenting, is a direct, high-leverage contribution to your most important career goal for that project. Maybe it's launching a new product that will define your company's next quarter. That's your impact zone. High impact.
So it's all aligned. Control, growth, impact, all working together.
Exactly. That feeling of maximum progress with minimal wasted energy, where everything you do propels you forward meaningfully. That's operating in your sweet spot. This alignment leads to optimal time and energy investment. It propels you forward and genuinely makes you bulletproof, resilient. It helps you avoid remaining in that stagnant middle state we talked about earlier where you're just spinning your wheels.
This concept of the zone map, then, it's incredibly powerful for understanding true resilience.
Right.
It's not just some neat theory. It's a really practical framework for how you live your life,
Yeah.
how you approach challenges, and how you choose to spend your most precious resources, your time and energy. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? Sitting here listening to us, it means taking this framework, this zone map, and actively applying it, looking at your own life through this lens.
Absolutely. And maybe for your personal deep dive this week, perhaps take some intentional time. Sit down and identify which activities in your life fall into each of these zones. Honestly assess where your energy is currently going. Be really honest with yourself. Then consider where your focus truly needs to shift so that your control, growth, and impact zones can really meet in that sweet spot.
That sounds like it might feel risky, though, or uncomfortable.
It might. It probably will feel uncomfortable, actually, because it likely involves letting go of old habits, maybe shedding some of that comfortable busy work, or taking on new challenges that feel daunting, that push you into that fear zone initially. But as we've learned from this material, it's the only way to move forward towards a truly resilient, genuinely bulletproof state. Remember that phrase, what doesn't grow, decays. You have to choose growth, even with the discomfort.
That's a really powerful thought to leave you with, and an excellent call to action. Identify your zones, find that sweet spot. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into resilience and the zone map. We really encourage you to continue exploring these concepts and apply them to your own incredible journey. We'll be back with another